Please come to the meeting room and begin tonight's meeting. All right, all members are present, so we're going to call the September 2nd meeting of the West Sacramento City Council, Redevelopment Successor Agency, and the West Sacramento Financing Authority to order. The council did meet in closed session this evening. We have no reportable actions, so we'll proceed to item 1A in just a moment. We are meeting tonight pursuant to the Governor's Executive Order N-29-20, pursuant to which members of the City Council and staff are participating in the meeting via teleconference. To reduce the spread of COVID-19, members of the public have been asked to watch the meeting via live stream on the city's website or on Wave Cable Channel 20, and to submit great comments in writing by 6 p.m. prior to the meeting. All the comments that have been submitted have been provided directly to each member of the City Council, and they're also available to members of the public at the city's website as well, directly next to this video feed, as well as all of the agenda items. And so those comments are not limited to 3 minutes. And the city clerk will report when comments have been received, but any member of the public may retrieve those comments on the city's website as well. All right, that brings us to item 1A, which is presentations by the public on matters not on the agenda, but within the jurisdiction of the City Council. Madam Clerk, do we have any public comments under item 1A?
There were no comments remitted for this item.
All right, thank you very much. Next, we'll proceed to item 1B, which is council communications. Are there reports or other communications from our liaison assignments as listed on item 1B on the council agenda for members of the council? Mayor Pro Tem Sandine.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The West Sacramento Area Flood Control Agency met on August 20th. We approved the agreement for operations, maintenance, repair, replacement, and rehabilitation with Reclamation District 900 and the state of California through the Central Valley Flood Protection Board. We also heard an update on agency finances, the Barrow site restoration and Wasafka projects, including the Yolo Bypass East Levee design status and the 2020 appropriations process. The city's recent community rating system annual recertification package was submitted to FEMA at the end of July, and the recertification went really well, and the city maintained its rating of 6, which offers residents and business owners a 10% discount on flood insurance premiums. The New Hope Community Development Corporation met on August 26th. We approved Cottonwood Meadows replacement reserves for Cottonwood Meadows Phase 3, staircases and rehabilitation and construction improvements. And Yolo County Housing also met that same afternoon on August 26th. We approved a COVID-19 supplemental policy to Yolo County Housing Injury and Prevention Program. We reviewed our letter of engagement with Cone Resnick for an audit of year-end finances for 2020. And we received a generator project update and also a housing choice voucher program overview. And then last night, the mayor and I participated in the Parks, Recreation, and Intergenerational Services Commission special meeting and participated in a workshop on the science and risk associated with outdoor recreation activities during COVID-19. We were updated on facilities closures within the city, park maintenance protocols, and items to consider for reopening outdoor activities. And I'm not sure, Mr. Mayor, you may have more to add about the meeting last night. It was very informative. And then finally, the Port Commission met earlier tonight, and we awarded a contract for professional services for groundwater and stormwater management services. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Sandine. And I just want to add the commission meeting last night, the very deeply thoughtful comments, observations, suggestions by members of the citizen volunteers who serve on the Parks, Recreation, and Intergenerational Services Commission. They highlighted some of the key policy challenges that we face, and they also shared with the commission, with our staff, and with us, just the daily journeys that they're facing. And I know Councilmember Orozco's talked about this quite a bit as well, and others, in terms of just the challenges of providing appropriate recreational and other outdoor activity opportunities particularly for young people in our community, obviously for everyone. But that was a key theme with respect to playgrounds and organized activities. And I also want to also thank Yolo County. Dr. May's participation as the Yolo County Public Health Officer was extraordinarily helpful and useful. She was deeply engaged and our partnership has been paying good dividends. So last night's session wasn't for the purpose of making decisions per se, but to make sure that the science, the medical science in particular, was well understood by our citizen leadership on the commissions and opening up some of those issues as we go forward. Are there other reports from our liaison assignments? Just to Madam Clerk, I believe it's now appropriate to remove Aligned Capital Region as well as the Mayor's Commission on Climate Change, both of which have completed their work, so they no longer need to be reflected on our assignments under item 1B. I'll report on the Sacramento Area Council of Governments Board of Directors met, and I've previewed for the council several times the year-long discussion that's been occurring about changes to the funding allocation systems for the billions of dollars that SACOG allocates on behalf of the state and federal governments. That matter came to a head at the board meeting, and the staff recommendation was to not proceed with a formula for distribution, but instead to continue with the competitive approach, which has served our community well, because we're very competitive on issues like environmental sustainability, climate, environmental justice, and congestion and air quality, and some of the other metrics that are competitive. But Sacramento County in particular have been pushing for a formula. It was a contentious debate at the board, and the vote was taken. And SACOG, when matters are particularly controversial or the vote is close, there are actually 3 votes that get taken at SACOG all at one time. We all cast our votes, and then they get tabulated 3 different ways. And any motion at SACOG must be approved by the directors representing a majority of the board, but also the directors representing a majority of the population of the 6-county region by city and county, also by a majority of the county representatives, and also by a majority of the city representatives. So it's a very complicated voting system, and it's designed to make sure that no one gets railroaded, basically. And the system is rarely used because we generally operate on a consensus or close to consensus model. But it came to a head, and the proposal to proceed with the funding round with significant streamlining and other improvements passed by a vote of the board. It passed by a vote of the cities overwhelmingly. It passed by a vote of the region's population overwhelmingly. And then failed to pass among the county representatives. There were 4 votes against it from county representatives. 3 of those of the 4 were Sacramento County representatives. So there was overwhelming support for the proposal to continue with a competitive outcomes-based funding allocation system. But Sacramento County not only voted against it, but was very insistent that they wanted to see a change and a full formula. And the board, honestly, has not been supportive of that. Now, the Sacramento County also put a motion forward that also failed because they were unable to convince the cities or a majority of the region in a more general way. So so SACOG deadlocked. It will be back at the board meeting later this month again for another vote. Sacramento County has put forward a new proposal, which is their same old proposal, but now specifies publicly for the very first time what formula they hope will be used. And the formula that they propose is based on existing population and with some consideration for road miles. That is the absolute worst formula from the perspective of cities like ours that are growing and that are particularly investing in sustainable development. And transit and other modes of transportation other than just roads. So it's a major threat to funding in our city, but not just to our city, to several others around the region. So I think the council knows I chair the transportation committee, and led the fight at the last board meeting, and we'll be back next at the upcoming meeting as well. And hopefully cooler heads will prevail amongst a couple of the other county representatives. And I know also Sacramento County is having some internal discussions about this because their county is, some of their supervisors are statewide leaders on climate and sustainability and air quality. And the worst thing that we could do as a region would be to move to a population-based formula system in terms of meeting those climate goals. We also anticipate that the Federal Highways Administration and possibly the state government will tell us at the upcoming board meeting that a formula is actually not legal in any event, and that we would lose the authority to program state and federal funds if we were to adopt one. So this is a high stakes issue. It continues to be controversial, and there's been widespread agreement around most of the region, including a pretty very much solidarity among the Yolo County jurisdictions, including us, as well as us in the city of Sacramento and others in the region. But I want to keep you up to date on that ongoing battle. We're trying to get this done quickly because the funding applications then need to go out, and we're trying to make sure funds go out so that jurisdictions like ours can build transportation improvement projects during the spring construction season. It's important that those funds get allocated. So that's the update from SACOG. All right, we have no appointments under item 1C tonight, so we'll proceed to the consent agenda, which is items 2, 3, and 4. Are there items on consent to be removed, or items for separate question or comment? Councilmember Guerrero.
Item number 3 for comment, please.
All right. The others? All right, then we will proceed to item number 3, which is consideration of approval of a grant agreement with FEMA and adoption of Resolution 20-87, accepting the assistance to firefighters grant program funds of $65,454.55 and related budget actions for fiscal year 2020.
Thank you. Just want to, I think I saw Chief Benz on the list here, and just want to reference that this is a very good recommendation, Chief Benz, and hoping that whatever else you need, very supportive of the resources you need to make sure that our firefighters have the best equipment to, tackle the fires. I've noticed in a number of fires all around the city, and just to the extent that, they're walking into a situation that they know where it is. So the imaging that I don't know exactly sure how this works, but it prevents any kind of injuries on them as they're walking into terrain that could be harmful to them. So just whatever resources to keep them safe, and also grateful for all the work that you guys are doing on the strike teams going out to tackle these fires that are all around us due to the recent lightning storms that are happening.
All right, so is there a motion then on the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
First time Sandine, seconded by Councilmember Guerrero. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll on the consent agenda?
Councilmember Ledesma.
Aye.
Councilmember Guerrero.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Sandine.
Aye.
Councilmember Orozco.
Aye.
And Mayor Cabaldon.
Aye. All right, that motion carries unanimously, and that will bring us then to item number 6, which is consideration of adoption of Resolution 20-01, approving the proposed landscape development guidelines.
I think, Mr. Mayor, it's item 5. Is that? Skip that. Sorry.
Oh, you're right. I'm sorry. It is 5. My glasses were going on as I was talking. So yes, it's item 5. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Tonight, the Departments of Economic Development and Community Development are pleased to present a development agreement with for the project 440 West LLC. Our two departments have been working with this developer, Mike Paris of Black Pine, for approximately 2 years. And tonight, Amber Siaset will be presenting the proposed agreement to council for our departments.
Thank you, Katie, and I'll begin to share my screen. Good evening, Mayor Cabaldon and members of council. The development agreement before you tonight is related to what was previously known as the Allura project, which is now formally called 440 West. This project is located in the Washington neighborhood west of 5th Street, fronting E Street on the north, and is adjacent to Harriet Lane condominiums. As you are aware, the Washington neighborhood, due to its proximity to the riverfront and large regional job hubs, has been identified as a priority area for compact transit-served mixed-use growth, supporting low VMT. In the early 2000s, we began to better understand the neighborhood's needs related to infrastructure deficiencies, absentee property owners, and many security concerns related to walkability. So since then, the city has really strived to focus investment within the neighborhood, guided by approved 2015 Washington Realized Sustainable Community Strategy. So over the last few years, we've seen multiple forms of investment, including streetscape and walkability improvements, rehab of underground infrastructure, multiple art installations, and the district's first public-private partnership to restore the firehouse. However, I think it's important to note that most of these investments have been located on the east side of 5th Street. The 440 West project will be the first significant private investment west of 5th Street in over 15 years. The development agreement before you tonight will provide an extension to vested subdivision tentative map 4936 or VSTM 4936, which is the current vested map for the 440 West project. VSTM 4936 was originally approved in November of 2007 for a 70-unit single-family project. In 2008, due to the economic downturn, the legislature approved multiple time extensions for map entitlements, setting VSTM 4936's new expiration for November 2017. In February of 2016, the city approved a map modification for a 68-unit project, reducing the project by 2 units and setting the new expiration of the map for November of 2020. In April of this year, the city received a development agreement application from the developer, Black Pine Communities, requesting a 1-year extension for VSTM 4936. The extension was requested to allow the developer additional time to acquire some adjacent property for the project and complete the final map amid consultant service delays caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. The 68-unit site plan for VSTM 4936 is currently shown, which is the site plan included within the development agreement before you tonight. This slide highlights some of the main objectives of the proposed development agreement. With the approval of tonight's item, the DA will provide a 1-year extension to VSTM 4936, the 68-unit project that was shown in the previous slide. Entering into a development agreement is currently the only available option to extend the rights vested in the current map. Although there is a proposed Assembly Bill, AB 1561, that potentially could provide projects such as this an 18-month map extension, it is unknown at this time whether the bill will be signed into law by the time the map is set to expire November 17, 2020. So therefore, staff has decided to bring forward tonight's item. VSTM 4936 vests the project in the city's 2007 fee schedule and the previous general plan and zoning. Minor city facility fee relief will also be provided through this DA. This was done to increase the neighborhood's urban development performance as compared to other areas within the region's urban core. Additionally, the DA will require the project to comply with the city's inclusionary housing ordinance and obtain design review approval. So as previously mentioned, this project will provide a significant private investment west of 5th Street, an area that has yet to see much investment within the Washington neighborhood. Also, as previously mentioned, the developer has acquired multiple lots adjacent to the 68-unit project site. Although tonight's item is to only extend the rights vested under the 68-unit project, we have been informed by the developer that they plan to submit a map modification to expand the project to include the additional acquired property for an ultimate 106-unit project. So providing this 1-year extension will allow the developer time to complete that map modification. Although the 106-unit project is not before you tonight, we wanted to provide a concept site plan of the potential ultimate project. We were informed that the developer, as part of the larger project, intends to dedicate a 0.44-acre neighborhood park, which will front E Street. This park location is consistent with existing plans identified in Washington Realized. This 106-unit project would also provide on-site groundwater restoration and storm drainage system, and is to be built as an all-electric single-family home community, including solar electric car plug-in and provide home battery adaptability. This is consistent with the city's climate action plan objectives. To realize this ultimate project, prior to the end of the one-year term, if the extension is approved, and at the time the modified map is approved, staff expects to come back to council to request an amendment or a restated development agreement covering the entirety of the property, which would also dedicate the neighborhood park. On August 6, 2020, the Planning Commission unanimously approved Resolution 20-9PC. The resolution recommends that the City Council approve the proposed development agreement before you tonight via Ordinance 20-11 with the additional provision that an additional one-year extension be added at the city manager's discretion. So this action would provide the developer a one-year extension with an option for an additional year at the city manager's discretion. This recommendation to provide additional time was to allow any potential unseen delays related to the COVID-19 pandemic. Tonight's recommended action is for council to respectfully consider and approve Ordinance 20-11, approving the development agreement presented to you tonight, and direct staff to modify the proposed development agreement to include an option for an additional one-year extension at the discretion of the city manager. This concludes my presentation, and staff will be available for any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Amber. Are there questions for staff before we open the public hearing? All right, seeing none, then let's open the public hearing on item 5. And Madam Clerk, we have received public comment on this item. Is that correct?
Yes, we have one item.
All right, and that public comment is posted on the website as well. All right. So without any further public comment, then we'll close the public hearing and return it to the council for further question or discussion. Like I said, I'm very excited about this project, and this is a strong development team and partner. Their vision matches what we've been working towards in the Washington district, in particular in this portion. And this is when we incorporated as a city, this part of the city was one of the areas that we hope to make significant investments in. But those investments require changing the economics and the developability of the neighborhood while also preserving the neighborhood and protecting it against displacement. And the gentle and the delicate balance of that work has been critical all the way through. So you can't come into a neighborhood like Washington and spend $500 million. Number one, because we don't have $500 million, but number two, because it would cause the kind of gentrification that would decimate the existing residents of the neighborhood. And so instead, the investments in projects like Harriet Lane and the approval originally of Allura and the investments that the city has made in the Washington Realized Plan, and the simple things like the sidewalks and the art walk and the underground utilities and the bike lanes and those other improvements that are absolutely essential towards promoting and supporting new development that is scaled properly to the neighborhood and to the vision and what's possible have been now accomplished, and through a lot of dedicated hard work over many, many years in order to make this possible. And this development team, I'm very confident is a strong one and capable of translating the seeds that have been planted in the neighborhood by neighbors themselves and by the work of the city in really bringing forward a project that we can be proud of as a community. And the attention to the project's density, to the electrification and the goals that were outlined in the Mayor's Commission on Climate Change as well. This is an excellent step forward in that direction. It's a simple request, so I'm very supportive of it, and I want to thank both the development team and our own staff for the hard work that's resulted in a project like this today. Councilmember Ledesma.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, staff, for Amber and staff for the work on this and bringing the development agreement to us. And I couldn't agree more with the mayor. And reading through the staff report reminded me of the many journeys, my 10 years before my 10 years on council, my 10 years on planning commission, that we envisioned development in this neighborhood, and excited more so that it's, as you pointed out, in the western part of the Washington neighborhood. And I know Harriet Lane was kind of that first kind of pioneering development there. And so it is good to see that. And I want to highlight, this is really good development from a lot of standpoints for the neighborhood, for the community, because it is sort of the more compact, more urban development that we're looking for in this neighborhood that will be transit friendly, transit encouraging. I know at one point we had talked about a streetcar light rail running on a north-south line up 5th Street, possibly to go under the rail bridge. And this would have benefited from that. And I think there's still work to do there, but this is the type of development we had in mind the entire time. And again, I'm excited about it as well. A couple of just kind of questions. This is a quality developer, of course, and the development agreement does provide for some design review period that is sort of at the administrative level. I'm just trying to get reminded, are there design guidelines for this part of the neighborhood? Can you remind me what those were, and that kind of we have a target for what we might be looking for in this area?
Yes, so there are design guidelines, and perhaps Kathleen Allen from our planning department would be able to answer that question for you. And she is here tonight.
Hi, Kathy.
Good evening, Council. Hi, Councilmember Ledesma. There are design guidelines in the process of updating. They are pretty general in nature, but we will be taking a very close look at the design, and we've seen the work that this developer has done, particularly with the creamery over in Sacramento. And so we're confident we can work with them to get a design that will be favorable for the Washington neighborhood.
Well, let me be more specific with the questioning, because some of our design guidelines are, I remember working on them 15 years ago or so, and some of the development work this developer I've seen do, my concern isn't that they won't meet them. The concern is that we'll be restrictive, that our notion of what development was, good development was, or we might have been overly prescriptive. And allowing, and then that's good when you're in a kind of a different market. But I just want to make sure that the design guidelines are sort of in an area where they're not overly prescriptive and limit their ability to do really good quality work. So it's just something I wanted just to kind of point out. I wasn't sure if they did kind of the nature of those design guidelines in this neighborhood. But that's generally my concern, in that, again, we have done best, I think, when we allow people with different visions for neighborhoods and talking with the community and the neighborhood, allow them to move forward. We've been caught in a couple occasions where we were surprised at the end of it, but that's where I'm just kind of setting the expectation for staff and for those who start to see it in design review. The expectation here is it would be good quality. I think the developer will do that. And again, I just want the design guidelines that are there to make sure that we made a minimum of those, or that more so that we're not limiting them by what they could do. And then thank you for, so that's all I had, Kathy. Thank you. Just some feedback for you there. And then on the extension of I'm excited that they're looking at you showed us a map of what they were looking for, because that is an exciting opportunity to expand what they have planned here. And I know it's out of scope for this development agreement, but certainly is to be conceptualizing dog parks and neighborhood features, which the Washington neighborhood certainly needs more of, right? We redid the Washington neighborhood with some of the sidewalk art is right there across the street and on Fifth Street. And to have some connectivity with that would be and to force, that's the wrong word, but to encourage people to have the access all the way to the western side of this. We anticipated and hoped for conceptually those amenities that people could walk and be gravitating towards the riverfront and have the access there eventually past cow stores and everything else. So again, just it's a wonderful opportunity, and I'm excited about it and fully supportive of this. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Ledesma. Mayor Pro Tem Sandine.
Thank you. And I recall the project from my time on Planning Commission as well, and it's exciting to be back at this point. I think what spoke to me in the development agreement, and I think it always does, but the list of public benefits of this project is so significant. And I won't read them all, but there's a list of 9, and including provision of opportunities of employment, the kind of development, the mixed use multimodal plans, stimulating this kind of infill project and achieving what we want to achieve is spoken about in the Washington specific plan and the Washington Realized Sustainable Community Strategy. So for all those reasons and what's been shared, I'm really excited, and I understand the time we're in. I'm excited that we have a developer and a staff team that are going to work so hard on this project and getting this out of the ground.
Thank you. Councilmember Orozco.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, staff. I appreciate the presentation. I wasn't on the Planning Commission at that time, but I can imagine how exciting it must be to see it come to fruition now. I work right next to the creamery, and so I'm familiar with the project and absolutely love the impact that it has had on the complexion of my walking time during lunch. And just, it seems like it's a very wonderful amenity in the Alkali Flats neighborhood. And so I do look forward to having the builder, bringing the same type of element to West Sac. And I am, like Mayor Pro Tem Sandine mentioned, really excited about all the benefits that it comes with. Especially given that, it's so forward thinking with its impact on climate. And so with that, I just had a question because I did see the correspondence that came in, and it is true. I mean, many families will be coming, and we hope if all goes well and we have folks that are on bikes and enjoying the streetscape and all the improvements that we've invested in the Washington neighborhood, are those streets going to be safe enough? And I guess the correspondence had to do with some harrowing crossing at 5th and F or whatnot. So I just wanted to know if staff was able to look at that area or maybe committed to just making sure that, as people start to populate the area, that cars aren't flying through and taking out young children and families and whatnot.
Correct, yes. So currently we have a stoplight projected or appropriated in the CIP for 5th and F. And so talking with transportation staff, we hope to hire a consultant to begin design early 2021 with that intersection, and then we hope to be under construction early 2022.
Excellent, thank you so much.
Councilmember Guerrero.
Yes, just want to also thank Amber and Katie for the work, and Kathy for the work you've done on this particular project here. This development is a very attractive one, and just want to also look at the inclusionary housing plans that are down the road, just to make sure that housing is affordable for residents who are, the working class residents who are currently interested in moving in. It provides great access to public transportation and a corridor to get to work. So it's strategically located. And also wanted to, emphasize the safety issues that was referenced in the public comment. If there's anything that could be done any sooner to address that, that would be good to know. The SEPTED, I think, is helpful to be able to address some of that in the construction and building of that. And if I think you mentioned that that's part of the plan as the construction moves forward. And I know that helps greatly. Is that something that in the general plan update, those are things that we strategically put in, and making improvements for safety and, pedestrian safety and just individuals to be able to, work together as a community to provide that safety for one another and support. Also, there is, an interest on my part to utilize the unspent sewer credits that we have restored or received back. And if there's a way to utilize that with the timing, I'm interested in providing additional support for this, attractive project. And I don't want to see them go to waste. And I think, given the cost of construction these days, whatever we can do to provide support for individuals who want to make a significant investment and provide an attractive community, I'd be very supportive of that.
Thank you.
All right, I was just say, so that I know our staff is working in monitoring the sewer, every opportunity to make sure that the sewer credits are used and deployed for the most effective projects in the city, given the timelines that we're under, in order to make sure that we don't lose the opportunities as well. I also, for those of us that have been in urban redevelopment for quite a while, I have to say I was a little disappointed with the comment letter that we received, which was from the private company that was the architect on Capitol Yards and also on several projects in the city. And because when they've often made comments like this, but when their projects come forward that they're involved with, they always insist on reducing the amount of public amenities and the space on the street and increasing the amount of parking and car throughput. And so it's an important point, but you cannot create new investment in neighborhoods like this if the threshold is you have to fix everything all at once. And there is a responsibility for the projects that Mogavero Architects brings forward to the city also to do their part. And that's been the constant negotiation that we've had in each of these projects. So it is an important point, and it's, Amber, thank you so much for the report on and the update on the stoplight, and of course on all of the other improvements that have been made in the last 4 years as part of the Washington Realized infrastructure improvements and the walkability that's there. That's going to be essential. But the most important way to make the areas safer for walking and biking is for more people to be out walking and biking, which is exactly what this project is going to deliver in conjunction with the infrastructure improvements that Katie Jacobson and so many others have been working on. So thanks so much for the discussion and for the questions. It sounds like there's a consensus on the council. Is there a motion then on the item?
Mayor, I'll move the recommended action.
I'll second.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Councilmember Roscoe.
All right, so it's been by Councilmember Ledesma, and did you defer to Councilmember Roscoe? Okay, seconded by Councilmember Roscoe.
I defer to Mayor Pro Tem.
Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Yes. Councilmember Orozco.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Sandin.
Aye.
Councilmember Ledesma.
Aye.
Councilmember Guerrero.
Aye.
And Mayor Cabaldon.
Aye. All right, so that motion carries. So now we'll proceed to item 6, which is consideration of adoption of resolution 20-01, approving the proposed landscape development guidelines.
Yes, good evening, Mayor Cabaldon and members of council. The Landscape Development Guidelines is an existing document that applies citywide to private development projects, and it has not been substantially updated since it was adopted in 1993. The guidelines provide a basic framework for designing landscaped areas within the city, and it has generally worked well over the years, but a major update has been needed to align the document with the goals and policies in General Plan 2035. The document before you tonight was reviewed by multiple commissions in the fall of 2019. And as you may recall, staff also presented it to the City Council on January 15th of this year for feedback on how to incorporate street trees on local residential roads. The overall theme of the comments provided at that January meeting were that a one-size-fits-all approach may not be the best course of action going forward, especially considering the rapidly changing nature of mobility and what that means for streetscapes and parking going forward. So with that feedback and recognition that any new development with local residential streets would require planning commission approval for other entitlements, staff have revised section 5.4E to be less specific and allow for greater flexibility. This change also aligns with the rest of the document, which is a lot more flexible and allows for greater creativity by applicants to achieve the city's goals compared to the existing document. So overall, these guidelines before you tonight are a much needed update and incorporate landscaping best practices for water efficient landscaping. New chapters have been added on stormwater management and low impact development, as well as updated irrigation and planting requirements. These guidelines will also help implement the urban greening and forestry strategies recommended by the Mayor's Commission on Climate Change final report by expanding the city's green infrastructure and urban tree canopy. So to conclude, staff are recommending that City Council adopt Resolution 20-01, which would approve these new landscape development guidelines. I'd be happy to answer any questions, and Wendy Williams in the Development Engineering Division is also on the call to answer any questions that come up. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Seamus. And this, as Mr. Laffey has indicated, we've seen this item before. A lot of work has been put into it by our commissions, and at least my read is that the staff recommendation incorporates all of the issues and the priorities that the council had previously raised, while also advancing some of the key policy objectives that the Planning Commission had originally intended to when they forwarded their first version of the document. And I certainly, I agree with the direction the Planning Commission was intending to go with respect to their adding additional space in the public realm and more room for bike lanes and for sidewalks. Absolutely the right direction to be going and fully consistent with the policies that are in our general plan and so many of other planning documents. So I want to thank and acknowledge the Planning Commission for their work and for their initiative in that space. I think as both their review and ours proceeded, it became clear that the policies that were being contemplated there that needed to be new didn't belong in the landscape development guidelines, but in other elements of city policy. They could be reinforced and supported here. And the changes that the staff have made reflect that and provide that sort of flexibility. It also gets to the issues that Councilmember Ledesma was raising in the last item, which are really important. And just to reemphasize that, developers, if somebody who's actually built the creamery or a high quality project and has experience in solving some of these challenges and doing designs that match today's market, match today's technology, match today's environmental and sustainability and social equity objectives, is bringing something to the table that we may not have. In fact, we know we didn't know when we adopted some of these guidelines 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20 years ago. And so the humility in the way that we administer those guidelines is important in order to make sure that we're maximizing both the value and the contribution that projects make in our community, but also the likelihood that they will happen because we're supporting an economically viable project. And so this approach with more recommendations and suggestions and objectives rather than strict immutable regulatory requirements, I think represents a significant step forward, and I'm prepared to support it as well tonight. Councilmember Ledesma.
Yes, well, you kind of took some of those things what was going up from the last one. So, but you're right. That was what I was thinking of in the previous item and what we've learned from the past, right? I mean, if we would have stayed with the way myself and Babs, when she was on Planning Commission with me, and then Charlie Moore and all the other crazy people we had on Planning Commission at the time, we would have had just a book full of pictures of photinias, and that was our idea of landscape kind of guidelines. And what we thought was good and what we thought worked on Southport Parkway would work in other parts of the city. And that's not what this is about. It's about kind of the things you just spoke of, and their ability to really provide developers and builders and those that, and ourselves, the vision of what those spaces should be, how they should be used, and let those creative minds sort of meet those requirements, or at least our expectations. And that's the way it should be, because we've received some really great spaces over the years as we let developers and those with the different visions of our city go forward. And down to the small Biquito Park out in Southport around the corner, that wasn't driven by design guidelines. It was driven by neighbors and community members who got together and did that. Or as large as the barn, that was never thought of to be any open space or landscape use or anything of the case. And I think that's what this document is meant to address, down to the neighborhood project. So I really am glad to see this come forward and kind of go through the rigor it did. And I think that's the last point I'll make is that this really did have some rigor to it from our commissions and from ourselves about what our expectations were. So just want to thank you for all the work on this, the staff and everybody else, and all the commissioners who had their fingerprints on this. It's great work. So thank you.
All right, any further discussion? Councilmember Guerrero.
Yes, Seamus, I just want to, thank you and David Tilley. I know you put a lot of work into this and over the years. So it's, definitely a product, and all the pictures on, what to look for, what not to look for. As we've experienced over the years, given where we're at today, we've learned a lot. We have a lot of lessons learned on how to improve landscaping, and it helps us now to utilize lessons learned to provide the guidance for those that are, establishing a business and having any kind of development projects here in the city. So giving them the tools and the knowledge that they need so that they're prepared to get it done, and also, to do it economically, so that they don't have to figure out how to redo it in the future. Being on the Planning Commission, I've experienced that, we've had to figure things out as we've gone along, learning through climate change, the impact of things that we need to make some adjustments on. The size of the street, or the sidewalk, and narrowing it or expanding it, things like that. And, this provides that kind of guidance that we need in looking at the trees and the landscaping, so that it helps improve where we're at today, and also makes it very aesthetically appealing for those that are going to be providing, the construction and the development for it. So I greatly appreciate all the work you've done.
Any further discussion? Mr. Mayor, can I just
Yes.
One quick comment is thank staff again for, I neglected to say this earlier, this is the first kind of document we have come forward that incorporates some of the findings from the commission work that was done on the climate change. And that was hugely important, a discussion point at the commission. The issue of tree canopies and open and spaces, landscape spaces and green areas, it does play into climate change and GHG reduction, but it's also an equity issue in terms of these parts of the cities where we did the item we just talked about, exactly that. And so this really lays the foundation for that. And it's for the council to recognize the way I approach the Climate Commission is these actual changes can actually be really good for neighborhoods and good for neighbors. It would make life a little better. And this is a real example of that. And if, again, giving somebody a target of what we're expecting, and if you don't give them a target, they'll never hit it. So that's what this is. And it hits will help us hit our targets on climate change as well. I just want to make that note and sort of plant the flag in the ground here that we kind of made progress here already. So thank you.
All right, well, that sounds like a motion.
That is a motion. Thank you.
Second.
All right, it's been moved by Councilmember Ledesma, second by Councilmember Guerrero. Mayor Pro Tem Cindy, did you speak? I was just ready for the vote. Okay, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll then on item 6?
Councilmember Guerrero.
Aye.
Councilmember Ledesma. Councilmember Ledesma,
Aye.
Councilmember Orozco,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Sandine,
Aye.
and Mayor Cabaldon.
Aye. All right, so that motion carries. That brings us now to item 7, which is consideration of reaffirming the proclamation declaring a local emergency in response to the global COVID-19 outbreak and adopting resolution 20-89 to modify the city council regular meeting schedule. Droz.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. Doug Droz, Manager of Government Affairs. The item before you tonight is one that you've heard on a few occasions to date. As you'll recall, the Director of Emergency Services declared in March and the Council affirmed a state of local emergency in response to the global COVID-19 pandemic. This local emergency must be reaffirmed every 60 days in order to stay in effect, which the Council did at meetings in May and July. The current declaration is set to expire on September 10th, and staff's recommendation this evening is to reaffirm it, extending it an additional 60 days to November 9th, as the city continues to respond to the pandemic and its effects on public health as well as the city's operations. Staff plans to return to council at its November 4th meeting to review the status of the local emergency. And an additional recommendation contained in this item is to make some modifications to the council's regular meeting schedule for the coming months. Those are outlined in the resolution attached to your staff report. And that concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to take it.
All right, thank you, Mr. Drozd. And this item has been was also developed in consultation with the council's subcommittee that's been providing guidance on the COVID-19 emergency declaration as well. The state declaration of emergency persists, as the council is well aware. On Friday, the governor released a new dashboard and tracking system for the virus that places Yolo County, including us, in the most severe risk category for COVID-19 on a continuing basis. That is the widespread risk category. And even within Yolo County, we are not the worst in Yolo County as we were at the very beginning of the pandemic, but we're right in there. And so there's no question that the pandemic continues, that the need for emergency actions are required, but also on a strictly administrative basis, our ability legally to claim reimbursement for those necessary activities that we're undertaking on behalf of our community in response to the pandemic often do depend on there being a in-place state of emergency declaration. So this is an important action for us tonight, even though it may seem at this point it's becoming a regular action, and hopefully that won't be true for much longer, but it is certainly true right now and will be for the next 60 days. And so this is an appropriate action to move forward. Are there any questions or discussion on item 7? All right, then is there a motion?
So moved.
Mayor, I'll second.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Sandine, is that correct?
Yes.
And seconded by Councilmember Ledesma. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Pro Tem Sandine,
Aye.
Councilmember Orozco,
Aye.
Councilmember Guerrero,
Aye.
Councilmember Ledesma,
Aye.
and Mayor Cabaldon.
Aye. All right, so that motion carries. And the item is adopted. Brings us to the council calendar. The Assistant City Manager Berlin.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. No update for tonight.
All right, thank you. City Manager report.
Oh, yes, Mr. Mayor, just briefly wanted to give you an update. Obviously that we had a whirlwind into the legislative session this year. Many of you are aware of that. We have a number of bills we've been tracking, so I just want to let you know. You heard from Doug Droz earlier. He's done a great job keeping us up to date on that. He's preparing a report that would be going to the executive team, but we do plan to share that also with the council, just to give you a full rundown of all of the bills that ended up headed to the governor's desk, especially focus on the ones that would be affecting the city. So just a heads up on that, and we'll be getting that to you soon.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. Other questions on the City Manager's report? Seeing none, City Attorney report.
I have no report tonight.
Thank you. Staff direction from members of the council. We have no future agenda item requests. Mayor Pro Tem Sandin.
Thank you. I'd like to propose that we adjourn in memory of some folks dear to the community who we've unfortunately lost recently. Just a week and a half ago, Kevin Hart, a lifelong resident of West Sacramento, passed away. He was a Renaissance man, father of 3 boys, a grandfather, a real estate expert, and a lover of life. I have great memories of celebrating with him on his 50th birthday that was just over 3 years ago. Loved his family, his friends, and our community. And he'll be deeply missed and fondly remembered. I know we also lost a former very dedicated and talented member of our city staff and mayor. I know you worked with Larry closely, so I can hand it to you.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Sandin, and I want to join first in the comments that you made about Kevin Hart and his contribution in the community and his style of living to the fullest and living on the edge, and in so many ways was representative of a core part of the culture of what West Sacramento has always been, and definitely will be missed. Larry Von Kennel, we also lost him over in the last several days, and Larry Von Kennel was the assistant to the city manager for West Sacramento for many of the formative years of the city in the first decade and a half. For several city managers was the go-to person in the city manager's office to get things done. With one exception, the assistant city manager. Larry was the assistant to the city manager, and we had an assistant city manager also at the same time. And I remember both of them when I was first elected. Carol Richardson was the assistant city manager. Larry Von Kennel was assistant to the city manager. And no matter who the city manager was, they were a powerful force inside that office for a young city still trying to figure out how to do things and what could be accomplished to really drive it and make it come together, figure out the politics, just roll up your sleeves and figure out some way to make it work. They did such a great job of inspiring folks that they inspired each other, and were the city manager's office romance, and the assistant to the city manager and the assistant city manager became husband and wife, and both Larry Von Kennel and Carol Richardson Von Kennel have been really central to the development and the success of West Sacramento, and so Larry will be missed as well. So thank you so much for the motion, and I will second it. The motion to adjourn in the memory of Kevin Hart and Larry Von Kennel. All right, so with that then, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll on the motion to adjourn?
Councilmember Guerrero.
Aye.
Councilmember Ledesma.
Aye.
Councilmember Orozco.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Sandin.
Aye.
And Mayor Cabaldi.
Aye. With that, the motion carries and the meeting is adjourned. And in things like this, with these sorts of motions, it's a time to remember our connections as neighbors and friends and family members. And so hug somebody tonight. Thanks, everyone. Have a good evening.
Thank you all. Good night.